Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode, I don't remember, of the 476ers podcast. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the finals and some other stuff, so stay tuned.
Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my mind.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the host with the most, all right, the 476ers podcast. We in this bitch. Happy because I don't have to watch our team get destroyed any longer. However, with that said, it is frustrating to watch other teams have better players than our guys. I've really been on a warpath. If I have a text thread with you and we talk about basketball, I've been on a warpath, essentially just comparing everything to Tobias. Yesterday I was talking to my homie Vic, and he said, you're talking about guys who've played in the Olympics, and I said, he thought that Chris Middleton played in the Olympics, and I was like, no, I think he was just on a select team. And Vic came back and was like, no, he didn't play in the Olympics. He played on the U.S. national team, in the FIBA championships. And my only response was, who hasn't played on the Olympics or any of those teams, or on any of, he hasn't even been on the select team, hasn't even been selected. It's Tobias Harris. Yeah. And we paid him a lot of money. Anyway, that's not the point here. I want to talk about yesterday's game, pivotal game 4. Obviously Suns down, Suns up 2-1. Go into yesterday's game. It's not, not quite a must-win game. It's really a must-win game for the Bucks. Going down 3-1 is kind of, you don't want to go down 3-1 as the team on the road, right? Because now you're down 3-1. You have to go to Phoenix, and you end up in a situation where you're having to fight back, claw yourself back out of this deficit. And it's an uphill battle going to their home court. You know what I mean? So you're getting a lot of guys' best efforts. And yesterday was no different. Yes, it wasn't necessarily a particularly great game, but it was compelling and it was good. And there are, I always think like when you watch finals games, when you're watching finals games, the best finals games or the best final series to me are the ones that leave you unsure the next game. I remember when the Cavs came back, I remember distinctly thinking after, Draymond gets kicked out of the game, you find out Bo gets down. And even though they lost that game, you start thinking, man, they're about to go back to Cleveland. I kind of feel like anything can happen. No, they didn't go back. They were about to go back to, they were going back to Cleveland, I think, right? No, they were going to Golden State. Right. And I remember thinking, if they can pull this one out, right? You don't have Bogut. They're not going to have Bogut. They're not going to have Draymond. If you can pull that game out, that's kind of a scary situation, right? Because now you come back game 6, you're going to Cleveland, and you're juiced up from that home crowd. What's going to happen now? Anything can happen at this point, and that is the best game. Those are always the best games. That's why super teams are not interesting, because once you get to the finals, it's decided. You're not even, I'll completely keep it $100 with you, 100%. Like the Kevin Durant, Golden State teams, the only finals of those I watched were the Raptors ones, because I actually thought the Raptors had a shot. Even if Golden State was healthy, I kind of felt like the Raptors had a shot at it. You know what I mean? I thought they had a good team. I thought they played well together. They were defensive. They were annoying. You know what I mean? Obviously, everything falls apart. Everyone gets injured, so you'll never have that answer. But I just, just because you throw in a bunch of guys on the court sometimes doesn't always mean it's going to turn out well. And while the Warriors were a little bit different because they all moved the ball in such a way that they still play team basketball while still having 3 elite basketball players, 3 elite scorers on the court. But they had nothing else. There was just no depth there. You know what I mean? Draymond's out of shape, kind of, and just is not the same Draymond at that point. They've been playing deep into the finals now for years. I kind of just felt like there was a shot there. But before that, the 2 before that against Cleveland, I didn't watch those games for what? What am I watching? There was nothing there. There was no high drama there. I watched the game 3 in Cleveland when Kevin Durant hits the big 3-point shot. I watched that game. But other than that, what am I watching here? You know what I mean? I'm going to watch decided. I don't ever tune into Harlem Globetrotters games for the same reasons, because the Generals are never going to win. So, that's kind of how I felt. And then, as a basketball fan, that's almost like sacrilegious. But, fuck that. I hate when that happens. Fuck super teams. It's always going to be the worst. So this series, I think, has been compelling because it's not that. Every single game, you're walking away. I mean, I said it after game 2. They're going back to Milwaukee, and I said this series is not over yet. You know what I mean? The series is not over. The home team won the first 2 games. They look good doing it, mind you, but I just knew it wasn't over because they were making some adjustments. Game 1, Chris Paul had his way. He just did whatever he wanted, and it's been getting worse ever since then. Capitalized by yesterday's game where, Chris Paul had when it goes bad for Chris Paul, it goes all the way bad. You know what I mean? That's really like the thing. And I love Chris Paul. Obviously, he's my favorite point guard ever, but it just, when it's going bad, I mean, it is falling apart at a speed. It's going bad. It's like when Doctor Strange was explaining to Tony Stark the Time Stone, and he said, hitherto unseen, whatever the fuck he said in Infinity War. And it's like, yeah, that's how it's going when Chris Paul is having a rough game. It's just fucking, Thanos has snapped. We have dusted civilization. This is not going well right now. And when it's most of the time, it's going good. It's just that those bad moments are punctuated because they're always terrible. And yesterday was one of those moments, unfortunately. It's funny. It's almost like, it's not hilarious, but it's not ironic, because I hate when people misuse irony. I could do a whole podcast on just that, but it's like, it's so crazy to think that, we punctuate great players by their great performances, but Chris Paul gets punctuated by so many bad performances. It's like they just seem to happen in the worst ways. We don't remember, but like, it feels like especially if they lose this series, we're going to remember game 4 Chris Paul more than we're going to remember game 1 or game 7 last series. You know what I mean? Or game 6 last series, I should say, against the Clippers. And I don't know, Chris Paul doesn't look right. To me, he doesn't. I don't know if he's unhealthy. I don't know if he's injured. He had that wrist band. I don't remember reading anything about him getting injured, but he definitely looked off. He looked short on every jump shot. And then, just turning the ball over. Now, I don't know. Who knows? I can't say that the turnovers, we've seen him do that, but he just doesn't look confident. You know what I mean? And, like, the worst part was down the stretch. I mean, with about 7-8 minutes to go, once Devin Booker came out the game with the 5th foul, I remember looking at Chris Paul's face and thinking, oh, fuck. Chris Paul is, like, melting down right now. It's not the Chris Paul, I'm the motherfucking man face. It's the Chris Paul, I'm a fucking little boy face right now. He just looked like he saw a train coming. You know what I mean? I've never seen Chris Paul have that face, and it was not a good face. It did not make me happy as a Chris Paul fan. I was worried immediately when I saw that. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, this is a little bit scary. The Suns are in a scary situation. And right now, you could tell me the series could go either way. But man, if I was betting, I would almost feel more confident. Maybe it's because the momentum. Part of it is momentum is on Milwaukee side, right? Part of it is recency bias. I just saw Milwaukee win games, and now we have to wait and see what the Suns are going to do in terms of adjustments. What are the adjustments the Suns make right now? I'll be honest. The NBA has gone so far away from big men that the only mismatches that ever get identified right now are on the perimeter. You know what I mean? The perimeter mismatches. So if one of the bigs is switched onto one of the guards, they don't do any work to get that ball to DeAndre Ayton, and it kind of feels like that, to me, seems like an obvious adjustment. These could be easy buckets, I would think. Now, DeAndre has to do a little bit better. There was one play in particular, I want to say it was in the second quarter, maybe the third quarter, where he was backing down Pat Connaughton, and he settled for a drop step from like 12 feet away. And it's like, man, DeAndre, Pat can't stop you from getting where you want to get to. You just got to get there faster. Before any double team gets there, just get there quickly. I think that could be maybe a thing, an adjustment. But if Chris Paul's injured, I don't know what's going to happen. Now, it's not just the injuries. Let's be clear, because Jrue Holiday's defense this series is what people think Ben Simmons does on defense, and it's not. but Ben does not play this defense. This is not the type of defense Ben plays. Ben is a very good one-on-one defender. Against smaller guys, he struggles, like most bigger defenders do, right? And then in space, he causes havoc, right? He causes havoc when he's in space, when he's on weak side, jumping passing lanes, doing all that extra shit. He is great at. He has a great nose for getting steals. And so that is him at his best. What Drew Holiday right now is doing to Chris Paul, and it's been happening since the last game, because game 3, I thought the same thing. Chris Paul in the first quarter, especially, I think he had, I mentioned it after game 2, that Drew was pressing him and was causing him to throw turnovers. Yesterday was no different. You know what I mean? Yesterday was no different. Still the same thing. Pressing him, not letting him get comfortable, fighting through screens. He's just not falling for the screens. He's not switching off. And I don't know what that's going to look like. If Devin's going to play this way, then you're going to then Devin is just going to be, it's crazy to think that somebody in the finals scored 42 points and didn't make a three-pointer. That's crazy to consider. You know what I mean? Made good free throws. But the thing is with Devin, I joked around yesterday with Vic that before I came up with this totally original concept that Vic did not suggest to me and I did not steal. It's completely my idea only. No one's ever told me this. I thought it was a great concept and I came up with it on my own. That I had joked that Devin, that his dribble moves, it's almost like his dribble moves are to get the defender closer to him. It's not to create space. It's to remove space so that he can get the defender to contest him better, so that he can then make the shot more difficult and he can drop that one. Because if it's too open, he don't want the open one. He don't want the open one. You know what I mean? He don't want that open one. He wants the contested jump shot. And that's like, I am not relying on that. I don't want to rely on that. And then yesterday, in my own genius, while talking to Victor, I said, you know what? He's a strong guy. He makes it's like he plays bigger than he is. Completely my idea. This is the first time I ever thought about this. He plays bigger than he is. You know what I mean? And it's true, because he's 6'5", and I had mentioned this when I compared him to Kobe. The hitting of the difficult shots. He's not as athletic, breathtakingly, not as graceful as Kobe, but he's not as tall as Kobe either. But somehow still gets these crazy fucking shots. I don't even understand it. These are shots that should be blocked at times, and they do not get blocked. You know what I mean? And it's just good for him. The thing is with him, and I'm going to agree with this. I've heard this before. Is the thing with him, and Vic did mention this too. His scoring is right. His scoring is great. But if your scoring isn't going, what else are you doing? And we're seeing really the difference when you look at Giannis on the other side. Because yesterday, Giannis had offensively had a quiet, quote unquote, quiet game. What did he finish with in comparison to the 2 previous stellar performances, which I feel like I didn't give him enough credit. I feel like I didn't give him enough credit on the last podcast, but finished with 26 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Well, though obviously the block that will be heard around the world, the LeBron-like block, the one that punctuates the series if they win it. 26 points, a low game for him in these finals so far, right? He scored 40 the last 2 games, but he did so many things on the court yesterday. You know what I mean? His length, his defense, and the thing about Giannis, let's give Giannis some love here, because the thing about Giannis is it's bigger than the scoring. His willingness to defer to Chris Middleton down late in the game. And I've said this, Chris is the closer. He needs to be the closer. And Chris had a great game yesterday, finally. The first 3 games were whatever. Game 1 was solid with not a great shooting performance. Game 2 and 3 were like, are you playing basketball today? And game 4 was, again, the reason why Toby would never score this in a final. He don't got that. He don't got that skill. That skill. No. This pick and roll, this screen and roll with Chris and Giannis is and should be unstoppable. You know what I mean? It's as unstoppable as we assumed it was, and just for whatever reason, they were never running. So, but Giannis's willingness to defer, when you talk about a superstar, and I've talked about this before, the difference between guys who will win on their terms, who only want to win on their terms, that's your LeBron, Kobe, they're great in their own right, but these are guys who want to win on their terms, and the guys who are able to defer and give up for the greater good, right? The Tim Duncans of the world, MJ. I just think MJ was so fucking great that it's a little bit different, but still, MJ to an extent, guys who are willing to sacrifice to win the game, not win on their terms. They're going to sacrifice to win. You know what I mean? Who here is going to sacrifice to win the game? And Giannis is that. You know, Giannis is from that class. He is from that cloth. He does that. You know, and it makes me happy to see. Like, I have the utmost respect for Giannis. You know what I mean? I have the utmost respect for him. People were down on him last year, rightfully so, even though I did point out earlier this year, you know, they got eliminated by the Heat, and it was an ugly series, and there was soul searching to be done after that happened. But that game, you know, obviously Giannis gets injured. He comes back in the game. What was that, game 5, I think, or game 6, whatever game that was when they get eliminated. And he was having a monster fucking game. But when he got injured again and left the court, I think he was like 6 for 7, had 14 points in the first quarter, something like that. He was having a monster game, so people were down on him, and understandably, but he was going out on his fucking shield. You know what I mean? Yesterday, you just see him doing everything, you know, and to give LeBron some credit, when they won that championship, the 3-1, the 3-1 comeback against the Warriors, LeBron had kind of was doing this, you know, I don't want to say at this level, because Giannis is getting to the level that LeBron was at during those finals, especially where his willingness to defer, let Kyrie get the buckets, those tough shots that we need, let Kyrie get those, and let me fill in every other gap. Right, I can fill in every single other gap. Giannis has a great understanding of defense, has a great understanding of positioning, where to be at all times. I mean, and now he has that little turnaround Dirkish type shot, because it's off of one leg, high arcing. He releases it from a high point. No one will ever block that shot. And if that ever, not to say if that ever becomes consistent, because it's been consistent all playoffs that he's been hitting that shot. But if he's going to do this continuously going forward, that's going to be like one of those shots. Like, oh, and Giannis's turnaround, you know, Giannis's a step back fadeaway shot, you know, the Giannis's version of the Dirk that he's hitting from 10, 15 feet. He's hitting it over centers consistently. You know what I mean? He hit it over DeAndre. I mean, DeAndre can't get close to it. It doesn't matter. There's nothing DeAndre's ever going to be able to do to get close to that shot to affect it. You know what I mean? The only player in the NBA who's going to be able to affect that is like KD and Joel. You know what I mean? It's pretty much going to be the only two guys. So, I mean, right now what we're seeing, nothing would make me happier than being able to crown Chris Paul a champion. But again, I'm always interested in compelling storylines, in what's going to happen. What does this mean for the history of the game? And what we're seeing right now from Giannis is that type of thing. You know, obviously, if you listen to this podcast, you know me, I'm a big Bill Simmons fans. Whether I at times disagree with him is fine or whatever, but most of the time I love Bill Simmons. I've read the book of basketball fucking 5-6 times. I couldn't even tell you. And one of the most important chapters in the book is called The Secret. He interviews Isaiah Thomas, even though Isaiah hated him at this time. He interviews Isaiah Thomas, and because Isaiah had mentioned it in the finals when they won, The Secret, which is essentially when the guys, the superstars, all of the guys, the team understands the bigger goal and they sacrifice for each other. They don't suffer from what Pat Riley used to call the disease of more. You win a championship and now you want more money, you want more fame, you want more opportunity, and all of a sudden that just subverts a team. That's kind of what happened with the Warriors. When you think about it, Kevin Durant did not, in my opinion, was not getting enough love for those championships. He thought he would get more credit for them, but they loved Steph. He left because he wants that glory to himself. Whatever, it's fine. I'm not judging that, but that is what it is. And right now we're seeing from Giannis is a guy who has all the glory and love, has the MVPs and all of it, and is now sacrificing. I mean, he has no problem, you know, shout out again, Vic is the guy I talk to basketball the most about, right? We have the most high level conversation, and Vic had mentioned this, you know, yesterday, just randomly texted me and said, you know, this doesn't matter, but Ben literally is just way too insecure and cares too much about his insecurities to ever do screen and rolls like how Giannis does, because that would make him more useful on a basketball court. He'll never do it because he doesn't have the thing that Giannis has. Giannis doesn't give a fuck. He will airball free throws. He takes 47 seconds at the free throw line. and he takes 72 seconds to airball them. He got James Harden complaining over here, fans counting down, which is fucking mad annoying, honestly. That shit is just kind of, that shit is annoying. I don't think it's cool. I think it's fucking annoying. Anyway, you got fans counting down all over the world on his free throws, and none of that shit makes a difference. All he's going to go do is play the best version of basketball he can play. He has and knows when to get a bucket. He has that, because that's always going to be the thing, right? I've always talked with LeBron. LeBron is such a cerebral player. You know, he's a genius. He is. You know what I mean? He's a fucking genius. And I think sometimes he would talk himself out because, again, making the right play versus we need a bucket and this is the finals. The right play right now may not be the right play. The right play right now may be put your fucking nose down, get to the rim, get us a bucket, get to the free throw line, cause havoc, right? As opposed to passing this up to fucking whomever, you know, whoever is on this court right now with LeBron, or, you know, as I mentioned before with Pat Connaughton, though Pat Connaughton played great yesterday. I mean, he's not being played great. I mean, he has. He's been playing great. He's been playing great all series. You know, he's been playing I'm gonna give Pat Connaughton credit. I'm gonna give him some love, credit assigned, credit approved. You know what I mean? Here's your credit limit, Pat Connaughton. You've been approved for this credit. He's been playing really good. But at a point where it's like, hey, it's time. We need something. It's time now. We need something. You know what I mean? Giannis was getting it. Chris yesterday was getting it. Chris can be up and down, it seems like, you know, but if God forbid, if Chris ever hit this level consistently, and you never know if they win these finals, even if they lose them, you know what I mean? The lessons you learn from being here, being at this point, most of the time propels those players the following years, the rest of their career. You know what I mean? Most of the times it propels them and they become better and they just get better. And now all of a sudden it's an afterthought that you were ever missing in playoff games. And you just know when it's time to get the bucket. It's time now. It's time for me to go. You know what I mean? And credit to them. You know, they're evolving in front of our eyes. These are younger guys, but they're evolving. Giannis is ascending the mantle of the best player or one of the best players in the NBA until proven otherwise. I think even after these finals, depending how this, unless he completely collapses the next few games in the finals, whatever happens, whether they win or lose, what Giannis has done here is essentially just establish, no, I am the most dominant force in the game. I may not be the best player, right? I may not be the most skilled player. I can't get you a bucket like KD, no, but I can on a pick and roll stay with the guard if I need to, or I can drop back and get one of the biggest blocks, one of the most impressive blocks I've ever fucking seen. I mean, that man going backwards, coming from a hurt ACL a week ago or a week and a half ago, and blocks DeAndre Ayton at the top. I mean, he was by Orion's belt. He put Orion's belt on in the mirror. He said, I wonder how this belt looks upon me. And blocked DeAndre Ayton at the top. I mean, that was breathtaking. Just a breathtaking play. You know, breathtaking. Again, only akin to what we saw LeBron do. You know what I mean? When LeBron blocked, and Giannis did that in Game 3, the full that full court chase down block, where it's like, yo, where did this person come from? He came from out of the picture and blocked it in a play that should have been an afterthought, an easy play. And this dude, that's what the great players do, right? The great players do the impossible, the things that we don't think they can do. You know what I mean? We've seen Chris Paul do it a couple times in these playoffs so far, where it's like, how are you hitting these shots? How are you hitting these mid-range jumpers? How are you just carving up these teams? And Giannis just seems like he's just a force. Good for him. You know, I got to give the credit where it's due. Sixers fans, let's stop hating. It's time to, we don't hate. I'm not going to be part of the hate. I'm not doing the hate culture thing, except on our own players. On other players, I'm not hating. Give respect to Giannis. We weren't going to beat this Bucks team. I said that months ago. I didn't think we could beat the Bucks. You know what I mean? And what we're seeing right now from Giannis, yeah, there's going to have to be real big changes. Whether we keep the team, if we keep this team together, there needs to be changes in hearts and in minds in that locker room. If we're going to go against a championship team, a team who's been there now, and face them down. Because right now, from my perspective, looking at the landscape of the East, the conversation is no longer about the Sixers. The conversation is about the Bucks and the Nets, and that's it. What's going to happen when these two teams meet? You know what I mean? That's the conversation, unless guys change their heart. And I don't give a fuck about the rumors coming out right now about Ben. Ben recognizes that there are parts of his game he needs to improve upon. What are you, dumb? You're recognizing that it's year 5. It's year 5 of you letting people down, of people saying, when you get a jump shot. And again, I don't care about the jump shot. I need you to shoot free throws and make them. I need you to finish consistently. Right now, I mean, Giannis, this is the difference between somebody who was the first overall pick and someone who was the 17th overall pick. Really. Because they both came in. Actually, Giannis came in more raw than Ben, by far. Giannis was far more raw than Ben. He was a little-known prospect. The only tape on him was him beating up on, like, Division II level basketball players and just being this freak. And ever since then, that motherfucker has put in all the work. Look at what he's done to his body since he's come into the NBA. He's been getting ass from fine chicks now. Before that, he was starving. That boy is starving. And now look at him. An offensive skill set, defensively a havoc, a fucking menace. He's like Ben, but on crack, on coke. You know what I mean? That's why he was a defensive player of the year and an MVP last year. He deserved those accolades. There were no arguments against that until the playoffs happened. And he's just been steadily improving every year. Better free throw shooter every year. Better, even though his shot, well, because he's gotten wider, in my opinion. As someone whose weight fluctuates constantly and I play basketball, my jump shot fluctuates depending on my weight. You know, weight, lifting weights, muscle tone, all of that, where at times my shoulders get wider and now I'm having trouble straightening out my elbow to shoot. Other times, if I'm thinner or whatever, I'm having an easier time straightening out my elbow to shoot, so it's different. Giannis' jump shot is hideous, but he'll take them, and it's a little bit reliable. And he has actual skill in the post now. He has actual post talent. Ben has none of that right now. So I don't know what's going to happen. There's been a bunch of rumors. We'll move on. Let's see what happens. Game 5 is Saturday. That should be interesting. If I was a betting man, you know, Phoenix at home. I just don't know what's going to happen with Chris Paul. Is he injured? What's going on with him? You know what I mean? Great players are not going to go out like that. I'm going to go ahead and say if I was betting, I'm betting on Phoenix to win. Deeper than it just Phoenix being home. That's going to help too. But deeper than that, I think that I just can't imagine Chris Paul is going to go out like that. Also, before we move on, I mean, these fucking refs. Holy Jesus Christ, what refs? What are you doing out here? You know, to be honest with you, if the Bucks lost that game, right, then Bucks fans are going to be screaming about Devin Booker's foul. Fair. But let's be clear, the refs fucked up so many calls on both sides of the game. I couldn't tell you who actually got the advantage and the disadvantage in that situation. I absolutely have no clue, and I can't tell you. I don't know. They missed a couple out-of-bounds plays that should have gone Phoenix's way in the guts of the game. You got fouls that they're calling for Jay Crowder. You got fouls that are not being called on drives. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening half the time. I don't know if the refs know what's happening half the time. I respect the decision to not foul out Devin Booker because I do kind of feel like, hey, let's not foul out superstars. But the thing is that particular foul, I mean, that was egregious. That was an egregious no. That was as an egregious no call as I've ever seen in the history of this game. There are few. That was, if you remember, Sixers fans, a year ago, was the last year against Atlanta. There was a flagrant 2 that they called on Mike Scott. That there was like a fast break, and Mike Scott, mind you, they went and reviewed it and called a flagrant 2 on him. When I was watching it, I took the Sixers fans' glasses off, and I said, yo, I don't think Mike Scott fouled him. I don't even know that Mike Scott fouled him. And then they said flagrant 2, he's out. That was as egregious of a flagrant 2 call as that Devin Booker no call. That was as egregious. As egregious. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. With that said, there's rumors swirling, obviously trade rumors. I just want to jump into a couple of them before we wrap this up. David Murphy, who, he writes for the Inquirer. He did the work to write for the Inquirer. I'm not going to hate on him, but I do know that David Murphy's basketball opinion sometimes I'm just kind of like, I don't know about that. Was running through trades, running through made-up trades that he made up and why they would or would not make sense. Whatever, I didn't understand. And one of the trades he had put out was that the Pacers trade us, Malcolm Brogdon and TJ Warren. One, TJ Warren is a free agent, if I'm not mistaken, but and he's going to get a lot of money, so that the money would not work. But if the Pacers offered us Brogdon and TJ Warren for Ben, yeah, you have to take that. I'm going to be honest, you have to take that trade. You have to take that trade because now you have a scorer who's better than Toby, and now Toby can become your fourth option, which is he's an overqualified fourth option, and he is a directly qualified third option, the most qualified third option there is. He's not overly qualified. He's not underqualified. He is qualified to be the third guy. And now he goes to the fourth guy, and TJ assumes the third guy role, which is exactly what he is also. And then Malcolm and Joe are your two best players. Yeah, you kind of have to do that. I'll be honest. You have to make that trade. That's not even a real rumor, though, but you have to make that trade. And I do see reasons why the Pacers would consider that trade for sure. One, because Brogdon's injury history is a little concerning. TJ Warren's coming off of an injury. You say, Ben, you come here, you have Miles Turner, who's a shooter. DeMontis is every year spreading out his range, even though he's a better post player. Spreading out his range. You have Caris LeVert, who can break down the defense and get you buckets, but also can play a little bit off ball and can shoot a bit. And then you just get a really good shooter. Maybe you sign Duncan Robinson as a free agent right now. You give him a fucking bunch of money and say, Ben, this is your show here, and these are your pieces. And I can see how that would work. Kings rumors. Right now, the Kings said that they wouldn't trade De'Aaron Fox. I understand why you wouldn't trade De'Aaron Fox for Ben, because De'Aaron Fox, to me, is better than Ben, but I also don't see why you would still trade for Ben in that case, because De'Aaron and Ben kind of fill similar roles, and De'Aaron isn't a spot-up shooter. You're kind of limiting De'Aaron a little bit by bringing Ben. You know what I mean? Now, with that said, you do it, and they also don't have a center who can spread the floor. I mean, you got Holmes, and Holmes can shoot a little bit, but that's not enough. Who the fuck knows what Marvin Bagley is? I know this. I don't want Marvin Bagley. I don't want Marvin Bagley in any trade. The only trade package that doesn't involve De'Aaron Fox that I would accept from the Kings is centered on Buddy and Tyrese Halliburton and then picks. And that's it. And I'd be happy with that. I would actually be happy with that. I don't know that they're going to do that, but I'd be happy with that. The Raptors wanna get involved in the Ben trade. I don't know what that means. I see that more as a three-way, some three-way deal that could happen there. Maybe the Clippers get involved or the Lakers get involved, and Ben ends up in Toronto and Kyle ends up in the Lakers, and we end up with I don't know what trash we are going to get from the Lakers. I don't want anything from there, but maybe there's a three-way there that could work with the Raptors. Otherwise, a straight-up trade for Kyle Lowry, Ben for Kyle, I don't want. I like Kyle, obviously. I don't think that's enough, though. You know what I mean? I like Kyle. I just don't think that's enough. Ben for Kyle doesn't do enough for us, especially because he's older. He's going to want a lot of money. And now you need another scorer. You know what I mean? You're going to need a second scorer. So I don't completely love that trade for us. The Magic have been connected, I believe. There's nothing that I want from the Magic. I don't want Markelle Fultz back. Even though I like him and, I hope he continues to have success. And obviously he's coming off the ACL injury, but I don't want that back. I wonder if there is a lane here where you end up trading Ben, where somehow the Clippers get Ben and something else and trade Kawhi. I don't know what they're going to do with Kawhi, like a sign and trade for him. I don't know what they're going to do with him now with the news of his ACL, because just because you had a partially torn ACL doesn't mean anything. It means you still have to have it reconstructed. I don't know what's going to happen with him. He's going to go demand. He may do a 1-1 or like a 1 and then a max, and he may not even play next year. You know what I mean? So I don't even know if I like that, but if they want to move on from Kawhi, you buy low on one of the best players in the NBA, kind of. You tell Joe, hey, Joe, sit this one out this year a little bit. You know what I mean? Or something. I don't know. You still have Toby, so whatever. Then there's the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers aren't going to trade Darius Garland. Not that I really want Darius Garland. I don't mind taking Colin Sexton, but the stories of players being pissed off at Sexton in the locker room don't make me happy. He's a guy who's a bit ball dominant. He doesn't make anyone better yet. He is a good defender. I do like how he plays defense. Could you do a Ben for Sexton and Isaac Okoro? That's not even enough. They don't have enough to intrigue me, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Even though as much as Ben drives me fucking crazy, when you're having Ben connected to CJ McCollum, why would I take Colin Sexton instead of CJ McCollum? You know what I mean? That's kind of what it comes down to. Even though I don't necessarily think CJ is enough, but I just don't see. The thing is, the one thing that we can rely on, I mean, you're seeing Matisse playing in the Olympics against us, played fucking incredible. And, you're going to lose Ben's defense, but I don't really think you're losing that much because I have been saying, I said all year, I think Matisse might be a better defender than Ben, truthfully. So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. We probably have to trade Ben. I think at this point, with what we're seeing now, as the smoke is increasing, it's becoming more and more likely that I think we're going to trade Ben. I just don't know what that's going to bring back. Is there a chance you could trade Ben for Kyrie? Yeah. Does that make us good enough? It makes us better, but then it makes the Nets better too. So that's kind of scary. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's it. Let's see what happens. Game 5. Again, that's Saturday night. So I'll probably do a podcast on that. That'll drop Monday morning. Everybody else, wash your hands. You know the drill. I'll probably do a podcast on Loki too. I have an interesting angle on it. Not breaking down the show, more about my interpretation of it according to experiences I've had in my life through meditation and whatnot. So want to try to pivot and do more stuff like that, even though I have to do something. I haven't been doing enough podcasts. So that's it, everyone. Thank you for listening. Wash your hands. Stay safe. Get vaccinated. Black Lives Matter. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. Stop Asian hate. Stop all the hate. Stop all of the hate. And that's it. Take care.
Yo. Justice for the blind. Just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my mind. Used to come